So now we're going to take a look at page 464 in your workbook. Problem number 3 says, circle the quotient that matches the question. Then model the quotient on the number line. Write the division equation that represents your model. So let's take a look at letter A. What is 1/4 divided into two equal parts? So again, you want to think, are we starting with 2 and breaking it up into 1/4 parts, or are we starting with 1/4 and dividing it into two parts? Push pause on the video and circle which one you think it is. Okay, after going back and reading part A, where it says what is 1/4 divided into two equal parts, that tells me that I'm starting with 1/4. And I need to break that 1/4 up into two parts. So this kind of makes me think back to the pancakes. Maybe I'm starting with 1/4 cup of batter and I want to make two mini pancakes. Or maybe I have 1/4 of a birthday cake left over and I want to share it equally with two students. So now you're going to want to number your number line. So start with 0 and end with one whole, and you want to represent it broken up into fourths. Go ahead again and pause the video and try and create your number line. So now that you have numbered your number line, it should look something like this. You can see that I started with 0. 1/4, 1/2 is the same or equivalent to 2/4, 3/4, and one whole. Now, I know that I only have 1/4. So I'm kind of looking at just this piece from here to here. All right. And I need to break that into two equal parts. So when I break that up into two equal parts, I want to think about, what do each of these parts now represent? Because I don't have fourths anymore. If you see, I have pieces smaller than fourths. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to cut all of my fourths into two equal parts, just so that way it will help me figure out what size pieces I have. So you can see now that I cut my whole number line into the same size pieces, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my number line is actually cut up into eighths. So I can see that, what is 1/4 divided into two equal parts? Well, these pieces actually represent 1/8. So 1/4 divided by 2 equals 1/8. So now let's take a look at the next one that's a little different. And it says, how many groups of 1/2 are in 4? So you can see now, to start, I labeled my number line starting with 0 and ending at 4, because I want to figure out how many groups are in 4 total. So in this case, we're actually solving this problem. So go ahead and push pause, number your number line, and then go ahead and break each whole into halves, because we have to figure out how many halves make up the whole entire number line. Okay, so now you should have something that looks like this, where you broke each whole up into halves. Now, this question is a little bit different than the first one. You can see, because it's saying, how many groups of halves do I have? So in this case, I can see I have one group, two groups, three groups, four groups, five groups, six groups, seven groups, and eight groups. So the answer to this problem, 4 divided by 1/2, the answer is actually 8. So I want you to take a second and relook at these two number lines and look at the two different problems. So when I start with a fraction and I divided it by a whole number, I got a smaller piece of that original fraction. 1/4 divided by 2 gave me 1/8. But in part B, where I'm starting with four wholes, dividing it into halves, I'm trying to figure out how many pieces did I make when I took the 4 and cut it into halves. And I was able to make 8 equal groups.